Vikier van Baskerville, the loyal hound of the Baskerville family, had lived his entire life in service to them. Bound by blood and duty, he followed every order without question. He had always given them everything he had, hoping to be accepted, but in the end, nothing he did was ever enough. His unwavering loyalty couldn't save him in the end. According to the whispers of hounds, loyal to his father, he had been falsely accused of consorting with the demonic clan. The punishment was swift and merciless, execution by guillotine. As the cold steel touched his neck and the world faded to black, Vikier made a vow, a desperate promise etched into the final beat of his heart. If he were ever given a second chance, he would no longer live as a hound. No more chasing rabbits for his master. If he caught his prey this time, he would tear it apart himself. Darkness swallowed him whole. Then came the spiraling, his soul twisting in a whirlpool of agony and cold. He wondered in that disorienting moment if this was hell. His body felt unbearably heavy, his senses dulled by unfamiliar pressure. But soon, sounds returned. Screams, giggles, footsteps. The noise and light. In the Baskerville estate, Vikier opened his eyes again and found himself lying in a baby cot, surrounded by dozens of other infants. His heart stilled. Could it be? Regression? Is he a baby? As he tried to lift his heavy limbs, the realization struck him like thunder. Yes, he had returned to the beginning. This was the Baskerville nursery, the starting ground of the hounds. And standing there, inspecting the newborns, was none other than Hugo Le Baskerville, the family patriarch. The young man scanned the babies one by one, his expression painted in grim disappointment. All of them trash, he muttered coldly. His gaze swept over the cots until it landed on Vikier. He paused. A frown twitched. This trash is quiet, he said, leaning closer to inspect the infant. From behind baby eyes, Vikier stared up at Hugo. The man looked younger than he remembered, confirming what Vikier expected. He had regressed to infancy. Despite the infant's body, his hatred burned with the clarity of a man betrayed. Hugo Le Baskerville was the mastermind behind his execution. But revenge would have to wait. This frail body couldn't even hold a spoon, let alone a blade. First, he had to become strong. Vikier remembered the trials that awaited every child born into the Baskerville bloodline. Before they were acknowledged as worthy hounds, they were put through a brutal rite of passage, an ordeal of survival. The first trial was the Cradle of Swords, a twisted maze of sharpened blades. Then came the Helix Wall, a spiraling ascent lined with razor-like edges. Finally, they would be submerged in the River of Styx, a water said to baptize the flesh with iron and make bones unbreakable. Now it was his turn. He was placed before the River of Styx, the final trial. Its waters shimmered like liquid obsidian, cold and deadly. In his past life, Vikier had never even made it this far. Blocked by his jealous brother and ousted by them, he'd been denied the river's blessing. But not this time. This time, he would monopolize its gift. As he was lowered into the water, he felt the cold seep into his very soul. Pain coiled around his bones, seeping into them through his injuries. But he clenched his tiny jaw and endured. Every second longer he stayed meant more strength, more resilience. He would drink the agony like wine. Minutes passed. On the outside, concern began to brew. Some of the bystanders muttered that he'd been in too long and might die. "He'll drown in there," one of them shouted. Hugo's brow furrowed. He turned to the butler, John Barrymore. "How long has it been?" "7 minutes, sir," Barrymore replied. Hugo stepped forward and called out in a measured tone, "Son, come out." Vikier, submerged deep in the river, heard the voice. Hugo's voice. The same voice that had ordered his death. He gritted his gums. Not yet. He pushed himself further, staying submerged, embracing the torment. His infant body screamed, but his spirit howled louder. Only when he was on the verge of collapse did Hugo pull him from the water. Soaked, shivering and pale, Vikier gasped as air filled his lungs. Hugo studied the child with narrowed eyes, then glanced at Barrymore. "What's his name?" "Vikier Baskerville," the butler answered. A brief smile played at Hugo's lips. "Greedy little son," he muttered. He even grew teeth. Indeed, small, sharp teeth now peeked through Vikir's gums, far too early for a child his age. But Vikier didn't care about Hugo's amusement, as he was dangling from Hugo's hand. Enjoy it while you can, he thought, because deep within he was already sharpening his canines. One day, he would rip off his master's head, and the Baskerville name would vanish from history, by the hands of Vikier Baskerville himself. Vikier remembered well the life he had lived before regression. He, Vikier van Baskerville, the bastardized blood of Baskerville, had once been hailed as a genius. At the age of 8, he was recognized as a prodigy within the family. By 20, he was already undertaking missions of assassination, espionage, and conquest, skillfully dancing in the shadows for the sake of Baskerville's interests. At 29, he believed he had reached the pinnacle of swordsmanship. But destiny had more trials for him. At 30, the gates to the demonic lands burst open, and a brutal war between humans and demons began. At 35, he survived cataclysm after cataclysm, pushing through battles that would have broken lesser men. When the war finally ended at 39, he had stood tall, bloodied but unbeaten. And for all his unwavering loyalty, the reward he received at 40 was betrayal, a defamation, false accusations, and the cold touch of the guillotine's blade. Now, in this second life, Vikier found himself back in the nursery, his infant body confirming that he had absorbed the waters of the river Styx. That alone marked a turning point. The beginning of his journey had already outshone the last. He had not been denied the river's blessing this time. He had monopolized it. Just then, someone approached, a young maid, cradling a small wooden box. She muttered under her breath, confused about the order she had received. "I don't understand why Madame told me to place this in the young master's bed." "A box for him?" Vikier raised a brow in thought. Who would send a gift to a bastard like him? He unlatched the box, expecting nothing, but was instead greeted by a lethal surprise. Inside, he found bloody mambas. Rare, deadly vipers not found in the Baskerville territories. Their intent was clear: they were sent for assassination. Whoever sent them didn't just want to kill him, they wanted to make sure the job was done cleanly, quietly. But these snakes could have killed not only him, but the other infants as well. Without hesitation, Vikier reached into the box, grabbed the vipers by their necks, and strangled them with steady hands. It was a clean, cold execution. His infant muscles ached with strain, but the fire in his eyes never dimmed. He stared down at the lifeless vipers and made himself another vow: he would find the madam who dared send this gift. She had to be one of the Baskervilles. And when he found her, he would not show mercy. He would kill every last member of the Baskerville family. The next morning, the servants arrived at the nursery only to find baby Vikier sleeping peacefully surrounded by the corpses of the slain vipers. Panic erupted. Shock turned to horror. The nannies responsible for that night were tortured and then executed. 8 years passed. Now, at the age of 8, Vikier was once again seated among his peers, listening to the lessons on swordsmanship. The instructor stood tall before them, his voice echoing across the training ground. "When you use a sword without mana, you're a mere beginner," he explained. "If you can channel mana into your blade, you are an expert. When you're able to release mana in a fluid, aura-like form, that makes you a sword graduate. And when mana hardens into a solid form, then and only then are you a true sword master." In all of Baskerville, the highest sword master was none other than the family's patriarch, Master Hugo. But Vikier paid little attention to the hierarchy. He sat there, mind elsewhere, gaze distant. The only thought that pulsed through his mind was, how long will it take before I can kill Hugo? The tutor sighed, exasperated. "Young master is lost in thought again," he murmured. He then added, proudly, "But his progress is exceptional. Due to his long stay in the river Styx, 7 whole minutes, his development far surpasses that of others his age. Patriarch Hugo will be thrilled when I report this." Vikier remained silent. Elation from Hugo? That would be short-lived. After the lesson, 3 older boys approached him, the Baskerville Trident. They were known as Highborough, Midborough, and Lowborough Le Baskerville. They were all 9 years old and already carried themselves with arrogance. Vikier recognized them immediately. In his past life, they had been the very ones who stabbed him while he was fleeing from false charges that it might be better to dispose of them early. The trio cornered him, smirking with condescension. "We heard a rumor," Highborough said, "that you stayed in the Styx River for 7 minutes. That you even killed 2 vipers as a baby." "You must be lying," they all said in unison. "To prove it," Highborough said with amusement, "Lowborough, cover his mouth. Let's see how long he can hold his breath." Lowborough placed his hand over Vikier's mouth. "If you last more than 3 minutes, I'll eat my hand," he said. 1 minute passed. Vikier didn't flinch. "Impressive," one of them commented. 3 minutes. Then 5. Then 10. Unnerved, they finally let go. But before Lowborough could withdraw his hand, Vikier sank his teeth deep into it. What are you doing? Vikir's voice was cold. Didn't you say you'd eat your hand? High Burrow and Mid Burrow shouted, We're older than you, you brat. Show some respect. Vikir stood, brushing off his clothes. You're not afraid? He asked. Low Burrow, eyes wide, whispered, My finger been bit off. The others scoffed, telling Low Burrow that they should leave and see the priest to get his hand healed. But as they tried to walk away, Vikir grabbed one by the wrist. Who told you to leave? They turned back, anger flaring. You're just a kid. We're 9 years old. Without a word, High Burrow pulled knife and tried to stab him, but his blade couldn't pierce his flesh. His body, forged by the river Styx, was already like steel. You forget, Vikir said, his eyes sharp as daggers. We're all Baskervilles. The only thing that matters here is skill. He drew back, fists clenched. Now, let's play till the end. After coldly declaring that they should play until the end, Vikir launched forward without hesitation. His small but iron-forged fist struck High Burrow squarely in the mouth, knocking out several teeth in an instant. The boy cried out, stunned and bleeding. Mid Burrow rushed in to retaliate, but Vikir gave him no time to prepare. He moved like a shadow, striking his jaw with brutal precision. The force sent Mid Burrow reeling, his face twisted in pain. All three of the so-called triad were now bloodied and broken, but Vikir didn't stop there. His cold gaze scanned the ground until it settled on a sword discarded nearby. He picked it up slowly and pointed it toward the trio. I'll let one of you live, he said flatly. Their expressions twisted in terror. Who? They asked in unison, their voices trembling. I let you to decide who among you needs to be lived, Vikir replied, turning his back on them. Panic surged among the three. Without warning, they turned on each other, scrambling to survive. Blows were exchanged, accusations hurled, desperation laid bare. Vikir watched them tear each other apart, a quiet snicker rising in his throat. The Triton of Baskerville, once feared for their unity and talent, had been effortlessly fractured. This was exactly what he wanted. Meanwhile, at the Baskerville estate, the clan's majordomo, John Barrymore, stood before the patriarch Hugo Le Baskerville, delivering his daily report. Things have been bloody with the Moore clan lately, Barrymore began. They're staking claim to the Ruby territory. Hugo leaned back, stroking his chin. Soon, an opportunity will arise, and we'll make our move. He paused, then asked, anything else? Yes, Patriarch. The interim exam results from Juvenile Fortress have come in. Young Master Vikir has ranked first. Hugo's grim face lightened with mild amusement. Is that so? The practical exam is scheduled for next week. The knights have already cleared the fortress in preparation. But Barrymore hesitated, a flicker of discomfort on his face. There's more. Yes, another incident at the Juvenile Fortress. A big fight broke out between the young masters. Hugo raised an eyebrow. How many casualties were there? No deaths. But the injuries were severe enough. Physically, they've recovered, but psychologically, not so much. Barrymore's tone grew darker. High Burrow lost teeth, Mid Burrow's jaw was shattered, and Low Burrow's finger was amputated. Hugo's eyes narrowed. And who was responsible? Barrymore answered with a slight bow. Young Master Vikir. The same child who ranked first in the exam? Yes, Patriarch. Call him in. Soon after, Vikir entered the room. He didn't bow or use the traditional greeting for his father. Instead, he looked Hugo directly in the eye and said, Hello, Patriarch. For a moment, Hugo was taken aback. But then he chuckled, intrigued. Patriarch it is. He motioned for Vikir to step forward. Tell me about the incident. I heard their injuries were treated, Vikir replied calmly. I'm not talking about flesh and bone, Hugo said. Their wounds are of the heart. Since the beating, they haven't spoken to each other, haven't trained together. It's damaged their bond and their combined unique talent. Vikir remained expressionless. Hugo continued. Your brothers came to me, said they've forgiven you. But you don't even feel a shred of guilt. I don't, Vikir answered without hesitation. Because I wasn't wrong. I'm the strongest. Hugo's eyes gleamed with something close to admiration. His mind drifted to a memory. Years ago, a young girl, the last surviving daughter of a clan Hugo had personally destroyed, came to him dressed as a nun. She said she had forgiven him and wished to offer a mass. He had laughed in her face. Forgiveness is for the weak, he had told her. The strong, they take revenge. Now, hearing the same cold wisdom echo from his own blood, Hugo was more than impressed. He leaned back and nodded. Weakness is sin. He turned to Barrymore. Let him take whatever he wants from the food storage. As much as he can carry. Vikir's eyes lit up slightly. Can I have chocolate? You can, Hugo replied. Barrymore led Vikir to the massive food storage chamber. The scent of spices, meats, and rare delicacies filled the air. He guided Vikir toward a shelf lined with luxury chocolates imported from distant regions. This is the chocolate the Morgue clan's gourmand loves, Barrymore explained. But Vikir shook his head. I don't want processed chocolate. I want cocoa beans. Surprised, Barrymore handed him a sack. Vikir popped one into his mouth and began chewing thoughtfully. One of the cooks stepped forward. Young master, would you like me to process it for you? No, Vikir replied curtly. At first, Barrymore assumed it was clever resourcefulness. A single cocoa bean could produce up to 100 liters of chocolate. If Vikir had access to the raw beans, he could essentially have unlimited sweets. But as he observed the boy chewing the raw, bitter seed without a flicker of enjoyment, a new thought surfaced. Young Master Vikir truly has peculiar taste. But Vikir wasn't thinking of flavor. His mind was elsewhere. 5 days from now, the practical exam would begin. And on that day, he would strike. A catastrophe unlike any in Baskerville history would unfold. And it would all begin with him. In the world, the Baskerville clan was feared and known as the Berserker family, not because of their bloodlust, but due to the relentless and brutal education their children endured. From the moment a child could walk, they were made to climb steep, jagged mountains. No one was allowed to rest or lie down on stomach unless it was allocated time. They slept beside the corpses of monsters to condition themselves to harsh environments. And all of this took place before they even reached the age of 8. At 8, young hounds underwent their first deadly evaluation. This was what had earned the Baskervilles the title of a true Berserker clan. The day of the physical exam arrived, and the young hounds were gathered at Le Rouge-et-Le Mountain, a land veiled in mist and danger. The instructor overseeing them was none other than Shadow Dog Pavlov van Baskerville, his presence as commanding as the steel he carried. He stood before them, eyes scanning each child like a predator assessing prey. Pavlov began his instructions in a low, growling tone. Surviving earns you 10 points. Surviving without any permanent injury gets you 30 points. If you are defeated by another participant but survive, you gain 50. Killing a monster earns you 70. If you meet all these criteria, you get 90 points. He paused. And lastly, there's a hidden badge. If you find and obtain it from its holder, you'll get bonus points. But remember, no one earns a perfect 100. His voice hardened. You are forbidden from leaving the designated area. Shadow dogs will monitor the perimeter to minimize casualties. You are to live here for a month. So try your best to survive. He then reminded him of Patriarch Hugo's words. The moment the swordsman become arrogant, he would be dead. The crowd of children murmured among themselves. Many turned toward one boy. It was Vikir van Baskerville. They nudged one another, whispering. He was the one who had killed 2 vipers as a baby. The one who had stayed submerged in the Styx River for 7 full minutes. The one who had scored the highest in the theory tests. Today would prove whether he could do the same in practical combat. Pavlov held up a large, iron bell and rang it once. With that sound, the exam began. The children scattered in all directions, searching for high ground, advantageous terrain, or quick prey. Pavlov gave one final warning as they disappeared into the forested slopes. Killing other participants is not encouraged, but it is not prohibited. If you kill, your points will be slashed. So think twice before you shed your kin's blood. The shadow dogs will be watching. As the young hounds hunted monsters and tried to earn glory, one of the shadow dogs noticed something strange. Vikir was headed straight toward the edge of the restricted area. The hound's ears twitched in confusion, but Vikir showed no hesitation. Near the boundary, he found a patch of soft earth. With swift, efficient movements, he began digging into the ground, carving out a hidden shelter. Once it was large enough, he gathered firewood and lit a small fire. The shadow dog watching him tilted his head. He had expected something spectacular from Vikir. But the boy had done nothing for days except store food and build his shelter. They say he's a genius, but it looks like he's going to hide for the whole month, the dog muttered. No point in guarding him anymore. Sitting by the fire, Vikir stared into the flames, his face lit with flickering light. Memories came unbidden, memories of camping in his past life. He recalled one night when a companion had thrown cocoa beans into the fire to mask the fishy smell of their rations. It had worked. Vikir smiled faintly at the thought. When he was certain no one was watching anymore, he muttered, "Now, no one will interfere." He rose and silently slipped into the restricted area, a place he knew intimately from his previous life. He had been here many times as a scout and had mapped every nook of it. He was in search of a particular monster. It didn't take him long. A pungent, burning stench stung his nose, the smell of scorched dung. That could only mean one thing. The monster was near. In his former life, they had been an annoying threat. But now, they filled him with grim excitement. And then he saw it. The massive form emerged through the darkness, its presence as oppressive as smoke. It was Hound. A glowing window of stats flickered before his eyes. Risk rating, B+. Size 3M. Site of discovery, second ridge of Le Rouge-le-Noir mountain. A dog from hell. It's a monster that brings horrific disasters to those who encounter it. Once you have been bitten, you cannot survive. The sulfuric flames that emit from its mouth and eyes are extremely gaseous and trigger sparks. Living things used as firewood will burn and will not go out until they completely disappear. Vikir narrowed his eyes. The hellhound's eyes glowed like twin furnaces, and its breath scorched the air. Its massive paws left molten footprints behind as it prowled the slope. To any other child, this creature would mean certain death. But to Vikir, it was an opportunity.